Who's actually getting the most out of a 55-inch QD Mini LED TV paired with a 7.1.4 Dolby Atmos soundbar? And who would be better off putting their money elsewhere? Is the bundle a smart buy for a family that watches movies, sports, and the occasional game? Or does it feel like an over-engineered luxury for someone who just wants a decent picture for Netflix? And finally, does the price make sense for an everyday buyer who isn't hunting for the absolute best specs? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last couple of weeks living with this TCL setup in a typical suburban living room, and I want to walk you through what that actually looks like day to day. The first thing most people worry about with a new TV is picture quality. Will it look noticeably better than the 4K panels you've seen on other mid-range models? The QD Mini LED technology here promises deeper blacks and brighter highlights by combining quantum dot color with a dense mini LED backlight. In practice, that means when you're watching a dark thriller, the shadows stay detailed without turning into a gray mush, and the highlights in a HDR sports broadcast pop without blooming into the surrounding picture. It's not a true OLED level of perfect black, but for the price range it's a step up from the standard edge-lit panels you get in most competing brands. Now, picture is only half the story. The soundbar that comes with the package is a full 7.1.4 channel system with Dolby Atmos and DTS support, and it's pushing up to 860 watts total power. For a typical living room, that translates into a room-filling experience that actually makes you feel the rumble of an explosion in an action movie, rather than just hearing it through a thin set of tweeters. I tried it with a recent sci-fi release, and the overhead Atmos effects really did move around the room. The bass is tight enough that you can feel it without it turning the whole couch into a shaking platform. That said, the sheer power can be a bit much if you're watching at night in an apartment. Turning the volume down to a comfortable level often means you lose some of that immersive detail, especially the subtle ambient cues. One of the biggest practical concerns for most buyers is how easy the system is to set up and use every day. The TV runs Google TV out of the box, which means you get a familiar Android interface, voice search, and built-in Chromecast. I didn't have to wrestle with a separate remote for the soundbar either. The included TCL Halo control system lets you manage both the picture and audio from a single remote, and the Bluetooth pairing was truly plug-and-play. If you have a smart home ecosystem, the voice assistant integration works reasonably well, but you'll notice a slight lag when issuing commands compared to a dedicated Google Nest Hub. For most families that just want to point and click, it's a smooth experience, but power users who demand instantaneous response may find it a little sluggish. Let's talk about who should actually consider this bundle. If you're a movie buff who enjoys the occasional binge watch and you have a moderately sized room, around 1,215 feet across, the combination of precise dimming and an atmoscapable soundbar gives you a cinematic feel without needing a separate AV receiver. Gamers also get a nice win. The low input lag on Google TV, coupled with the high refresh rate typical of 55-inch TCL panels, makes for responsive play, and the soundbar's positional audio can help you locate in-game cues. On the flip side, if your primary use is just watching news or YouTube, you'll probably never tap into the full HDR potential or the multi-channel audio, so you might be better off with a cheaper 4K TV and a basic soundbar. There are a couple of practical weaknesses worth mentioning. First, the TV's viewing angles are decent but not as wide as an IPS panel. If you often sit off to the side, the color shift can be noticeable, especially with bright HDR content. Second, the soundbar, while powerful, does rely on upward-firing drivers for the Atmos effects, which means you need a ceiling that's at least a few feet above the listening position for the best experience. In a low-ceiling apartment, the overhead effects become muted, and you're left with mostly horizontal sound. Finally, the bundled price point lands it in the upper mid-tier. You can find a plain 55-inch 4K TV for considerably less, but you lose the mini LED and Atmos advantages that this package offers. Overall, the value of this TCL bundle comes from the synergy between the TV and the soundbar. The QD Mini LED panel delivers a noticeably better HDR picture than many competitors at this price, and the 7.1.4 channel system turns a regular living room into a decent home theater without the need for a separate AV receiver. You're paying a premium for those enhancements, but if you're the kind of buyer who watches a lot of high-contrast movies, enjoys occasional